Living in Willowbrook Gardens wasn't my dream neighborhood, but the accessible layout and quiet streets made it perfect for me and Luna, my service dog. Luna is a stunning black Labrador who helps me navigate daily life with my visual impairment. After losing most of my sight in a workplace accident 3 years ago, she's impeccably trained, always wears her service vest when we're out, and responds to commands with the precision that only comes from months of professional training. I know the Americans with disabilities act inside and out. It's essential when your independence depends on a service animal. But I never thought I'd need to educate my HOA president about federal law while standing in handcuffs on my own driveway. The first encounter with Margaret Maggie Thornton happened on a Tuesday morning. She appeared at my door, wearing a perfectly pressed pantsuit and carrying a leather portfolio that screamed, "I'm important." She introduced herself as the HOA president with the kind of authority that expected immediate deference. "I wasn't notified about any pet applications for this address," she announced, staring down at Luna, who was lying quietly beside my feet in her service vest. I explained politely that Luna was a service dog, not a pet, and therefore exempt from any pet policies under the ADA. Maggie's smile never wavered, but her eyes grew cold. "Well, we'll see about that," she said, making a note in her portfolio. "Community standards apply to everyone, dear." The condescending deer lingered in the air long after she click-clacked away in her heels. Over the following month, I received a parade of violation notices that would have been comical if they weren't so clearly targeted. My house numbers were apparently non-regulation font. My welcome mat was unapproved decorative material, and my car was parked 3 inches beyond the designated driveway boundary. Each notice bore Maggie's signature, complete with a little heart dotting the I in her name, a touch that felt more ominous than endearing. I corrected every violation without complaint, hoping to keep the peace. But when the certified letter arrived announcing a mandatory HOA meeting to discuss unauthorized animal policies, I knew the real battle was beginning. The meeting was held in the community center, a beige room that smelled like old coffee and bureaucracy. Maggie stood at the front like a general addressing troops, proposing new regulations that would require all animals, including service animals, to undergo HOA evaluation and carry community-issued identification tags. When I raised my hand to point out that this directly violated federal disability law, Maggie waved me off dismissively. "Federal guidelines are just suggestions," she declared to the room. "Our community covenant supersedes outside interference." Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but no one challenged her statement. After the meeting, Maggie cornered me by the exit. "You're going to find that I don't back down easily," she whispered, close enough that I could smell her cloying perfume. "Play by my rules or face the consequences." The confrontation came the following Saturday morning. I was in my front yard with Luna, practicing some routine commands to keep her skills sharp. Luna was demonstrating a perfect stay when Maggie's voice cut through the peaceful morning air. "That animal is in violation of HOA Policy 847B. Regarding unauthorized pets in common areas," she announced loudly enough for half the neighborhood to hear. She stood at the edge of my property line, brandishing an industrial-sized spray bottle like a weapon. I took a deep breath and explained, once again, that Luna was a service dog protected under federal law, and that my front yard wasn't a common area anyway. Maggie's face flushed crimson. "I am sick and tired of you people hiding behind your so-called disabilities to break our rules," she snarled, stepping onto my property. "If you won't control that mutt, I will." Before I could process what was happening, Maggie raised the spray bottle and doused Luna with a stream of liquid. Luna yelped and stumbled backward, shaking her head frantically and pawing at her eyes. The acrid smell of vinegar mixed with something chemical filled the air. My training kicked in immediately. I guided Luna away from Maggie, checking her eyes and nose for damage while my hands shook with fury. "What was in that bottle?" I demanded. Maggie stood there with a satisfied smirk. "Just a little vinegar and dish soap mixture," she said casually. "Maybe now your precious princess will learn some manners." She turned to walk away as if nothing had happened. "Stay right there," I called out, my voice steady despite my rage. "You just committed a federal crime." I quickly led Luna inside, flushed her eyes with clean water, and called my veterinarian's emergency line. While waiting for the callback, I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an assault on my service dog, I said clearly. My neighbor just sprayed my service animal with chemicals. This is a federal offense under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The dispatcher took my information and assured me officers were en route. Within 15 minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled into my driveway. I met Officers Rodriguez and Chen at my door with Luna's service documentation, training certificates, and a detailed account of what had transpired. Officer Rodriguez examined Luna gently while Officer Chen took my statement. The liquid appears to be some kind of acidic solution, Rodriguez noted. Her eyes are irritated but not severely damaged. We'll need photos for evidence. While they documented Luna's condition, Officer Chen went across the street to interview Maggie. Through my window, I watched her animated performance, pointing at my house, gesturing wildly, and at one point actually stamping her foot like a toddler having a tantrum. When both officers returned, they looked grim. She admitted to spraying your dog, Officer Chen reported. She claims she was enforcing community rules, but we've informed her that interference with a service animal is a federal felony. She's also facing state charges for animal cruelty. We need to place her under arrest, Officer Rodriguez added. Will you be pressing charges? Absolutely, I replied without hesitation. The sight of Maggie being led to the patrol car in handcuffs was surreal. She kept screaming about lawsuits and wrongful arrest, while neighbors emerged from their houses to witness the spectacle. This is harassment, she shrieked as the officer placed his hand on her head to guide her into the back seat. I'll have you all sued into bankruptcy. An elderly neighbor named Mr. Peterson approached me as the police car drove away. We should have spoken up sooner, he said quietly, watching Luna, who had recovered and was sitting alertly by my side. She's been terrorizing this whole community for months. Thank you for finally standing up to her. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Maggie was charged with interference with a service animal under federal law, animal cruelty under state law, and harassment. Her arraignment was a production worthy of daytime television. She arrived with a legal team that looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom, completely overdressed for small-town justice. The federal prosecutor was thorough and unforgiving. During the preliminary hearing, they presented Luna's medical records, photographs of her injuries, testimony from the veterinarian, and video footage from a neighbor's security camera that captured the entire incident. Maggie's lawyers tried to argue that she was enforcing legitimate community standards, but the judge cut them off. Community covenants do not supersede federal law, Judge Martinez stated firmly. The Americans with Disabilities Act is clear about interference with service animals. This court will not tolerate such blatant disregard for disability rights. Before the criminal trial could begin, an emergency HOA meeting was called. I attended with Luna and was amazed to see nearly every homeowner in the community packed into the small meeting room. The vice president, a soft-spoken accountant named David Kim, called for an immediate vote of no confidence in Maggie's leadership. Her actions have exposed our community to significant legal liability, he announced. Moreover, her behavior is completely contrary to the inclusive values we want to represent. The vote was unanimous, 45-0. Maggie was officially removed from the board, and all her proposed animal policies were rescinded. Someone had even prepared a new nameplate for the president's position on the board table, where Maggie's ornate nameplate once sat. There was now a simple placard reading, "Vacant, seeking qualified candidates." The criminal case concluded with a plea agreement. Facing potentially years in federal prison, Maggie accepted a deal that included 45 days in county jail, a $7,500 fine, 300 hours of mandatory community service at the local animal rescue, and required completion of disability awareness training. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order, preventing her from coming within 100 feet of me or Luna. As the sentence was read, Maggie's confident facade finally cracked. I was just trying to maintain property values, she whispered to her attorney, loud enough for the courtroom to hear. The judge leaned forward with a stern expression. Ms. Thornton, property values mean nothing if we don't value the basic rights and dignity of all community members. Your actions were not only illegal, but fundamentally unethical. He paused, looking directly at her. Perhaps your time in jail and working with animals will teach you some empathy. As Maggie was led away to begin her sentence, she looked back at me one final time. The arrogance and entitlement that had once defined her were completely gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had finally met consequences she couldn't argue or intimidate her way out of. She mouthed something that looked like, "I'm sorry," but we both knew the damage was already done. Luna sat beside me throughout the entire proceeding, a perfect example of the professional service dog she was trained to be. As we left the courthouse, I scratched behind her ears, and she leaned into my touch, a small moment of connection that reminded me why I'd fought so hard to protect her. 6 months later, Willowbrook Gardens had transformed into the welcoming community it was always meant to be. The new HOA board implemented policies promoting accessibility and inclusion. Luna and I could walk the neighborhood streets without harassment, and other residents with disabilities felt comfortable moving into the community. Maggie completed her jail sentence and community service, though she sold her house and moved away immediately afterward. The animal rescue where she'd worked reported that she'd actually become quite skilled at caring for injured dogs, though she never once acknowledged me during the few times our paths crossed there. The last I heard, she was living in a different state, working as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. Perhaps she'd finally learned that true authority comes from helping others, not controlling them. And sometimes, the most important lesson is that some rules, like respecting the rights of disabled people and their service animals, are absolutely non-negotiable.